Okay, hi everyone. We are here today with Rhiannon Pabich. Did I totally just butcher that? Or
Close enough, Rhiannon Paddock.
Pabich. Okay, sorry. I'm from Germany and the CH is pronounced completely differently. And I forget that in English you replace it with a K sound. So we're here to talk to you about Northeastern. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Totally. So thank you for having me first and foremost. Hi, everyone. My name is Rhiannon. I use pronouns like she and her. And my title at Northeastern is Senior Assistant Director for Multicultural Recruitment, which is a lot of syllables to say. It's my job to help students through the college application process at Northeastern, particularly students who come from backgrounds that might not always have been historically represented at schools like Northeastern. So students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, first-gen students, LGBTQ+ students, the whole umbrella are the students I am most excited to work with. And I also have the pleasure of working very closely with students from Southern California, which is part of what brings me here with you today virtually. So very excited to be with all of you. I've been at Northeastern for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was at Boston University, which is my alma mater. And I actually grew up in a small town in rural Georgia. So I'm a big believer in going far away from home for college. So very excited to be chatting with all of you about the other side of the country today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. I love it. And it's so nice to hear too that you have, that background of having, worked at and attended Boston University as well, because a lot of our students who might be interested in Northeastern might also be interested in Boston. So it'll be really interesting to hear kind of your experiences at Northeastern. So I'm good for you to take it away and give us a nice intro to everything, and then go from there.
Fabulous. So let me just press my screen share button. And this is always the moment where we say, we've been doing this for a whole year, but we'll always see how it goes. So if either of you wouldn't mind just giving me a thumbs up, do you see my screen? Beautiful. Cool. So I'll leave it here for just a moment so that way folks who are either watching live or are watching a recording later do have a chance to scan that QR code. That QR code will link you to our virtual brochure where you can get much, much more information than I'm going to talk at you today, but just a good resource. I also do like to just start with kind of rooting us in place. So this photo that you see in front of you is our Centennial Common, which is our main quad on campus. And I love this photo because it looks like a staged marketing photo, but this is actually what our campus looks like, usually on the first warm spring day, which we've started to finally have in Boston, because we do get the full 4 seasons, which I know might be a little bit of a transition for many of you if you choose to come to college in New England, but is also one of the best parts of being a person and being a student here in particular. So I really like this photo because I think it really showcases our students in the sense of community that you're really able to find when you join our campus. So I like to structure these kinds of talks about Northeastern by dividing our conversation into 3 buckets, really the biggest key themes of things to know about Northeastern. The first is academic flexibility, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. The second is what we call experiential learning, or our commitment to learning by doing. And then the third bucket is all of the other good stuff that makes a residential college experience what it is. And we are very fortunate because we have a lot of good things going for us. So I will kick us off with a little bit of a coverage of our academic programs. So I recognize this is teeny tiny font for all of you. So this is not meant for you to necessarily be able to see in full detail, but really just to give you a really clear overview of how much there really is going on academically at Northeastern. So Northeastern is composed of 8 undergraduate schools and colleges, along with a program for undeclared students called the Explore program. There are more than 150 majors in here, more than 95 unique combined majors, and many combinations of those things. So the short version, the big takeaway, is that academic flexibility is a huge thing for us. We really do want you to be able to study what it is you're interested in, what it is you're most excited about. And we also want you to have the flexibility and the leeway to change your mind if you do. We know that you might have known since birth you want to be a chemical engineer, and if so, that's awesome. You can hit the ground running in that program. We also know that you may have more than one true academic love, and we don't plan to make you choose just one thing. We really do want you to be able to explore your options. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see the list of our different colleges, as well as the defined majors within those. Those tend to be some of the more traditional things that folks think about when they think about majors. On the right-hand side of your screen, with all those multicolored squares, those represent our combined majors. Combined majors are pretty cool because unlike a double major where you would need to fully pursue 2 different majors and eventually receive the full diploma that demonstrated both of those majors, with these combined majors, it is less planning, same amount of time as one major, but a little bit more streamlined and intentionally interdisciplinary programming within it. So what that means is, I'm trying to pick a fun one. So say you wanted to study biology and English. If you were pursuing a double major, you would need to take Biology 101, English 101, 201, 201, 301, 301, etc., until you had satisfied the requirements for both programs. When you pursue it as a combined major instead, you take Bio in English 101, Bio in English 201, etc. Courses are co-taught and designed by faculty from across both disciplines. You have the chance to get that project-based as well as that academic-based learning in a really intentionally pre-designed way, meaning that you have other classes to play with to pick up a minor or take some other classes for fun, graduate early, pursue an additional co-op or global experience. It gives you a lot more flexibility. The other thing that I'll note about academics is that the vast majority of our students are pursuing, on top of their major or majors, at least one minor. The average minor at Northeastern is only about 5 classes. So some of our students do end up discovering that they've accidentally picked up a minor or 2 or 3 by the time that they've satisfied their major and core curriculum requirements. So we really do want college to be able to be a playground for ideas for our students. One other piece about academics that I'll add is Northeastern's unique core curriculum, which is called New Path. Instead of being like many high school graduation requirements where you need to take a certain number of English and math and social science classes in order to legally be granted your diploma, we instead have said that there are 13 skills and competencies that we think college graduates should have by the time that they get their diploma. What we then did is went through every single course offered at Northeastern, cross-referenced them with those 13 skills and competencies, and students go through that skills and competencies list when they're building their core curriculum, rather than looking at specific subject areas. So, theoretically, if you are not a science person, you could avoid hard sciences for much of your college career. But more so, we really want it to be tailored toward you pursuing courses that are going to be most interesting to you and that you'll actually be excited about, because we know that students have the best learning experience if they're actually into what it is they're studying. Not a super revolutionary idea, but one that we're very proud to have been able to implement in this way through our core curriculum. So that was a lot of alphabet soup when it comes to academics and majors. Before we shift and start talking about Northeastern's experiential learning model, I'm curious if we have any questions about academics that you'd like me to cover.
I'm good, I think.
Great.
Also just real quick because we do have some attendees in here. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to just write them in the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that and let us know. And then of course we can address that at any time.
Wonderful. This gets a lot more fun if you do ask questions. Otherwise we just talk amongst ourselves, which we'll do, but it's less fun. So glad you're all here. All right, so shifting gears a little bit. So I am now going to set my slideshow to just play photos of campus kind of while we talk through the other elements, which I apologize. Of course, Google has changed. All right, we'll see if that loops. If it doesn't change eventually, we'll exit it out and double check. So the next big category of things to know about Northeastern is that we believe in what we call experiential learning, which is really just a lot of syllables to say learning by doing. The analogy I like to use when I talk about Northeastern's experiential learning model is riding a bike. So imagine you wanted to be a bike riding major in college. You could go somewhere where you would spend 8 semesters taking classes on riding bikes and reading books on riding bicycles, meeting with famous bicyclists, maybe reverse engineer a bicycle. But if when you graduate, you've never been on a bike before, we recognize that what's probably going to happen the first time you hop onto one isn't going to be an awesome experience. You might wobble, you might fall, you're probably not poised to bike off into the sunset and experience great success. So our idea at Northeastern is that we really do want to get you onto that proverbial bicycle as early as possible in your college career. We do that for a couple of reasons. One is that we want you to get really good at whatever it is you're studying so that you do have the opportunity to succeed in that field of interest upon graduating. But we also want to give you a chance to try it out. Road test your assumptions, figure out if you actually do want to be a chemical engineer like you've always thought by actually being a chemical engineer, giving you the chance to say, yes, I really love this, let me get great at it. Or you can say, actually, this is nothing like I thought it was, and I would like to study something else. And then you still have time and resources and support to shift your major, shift your plan, and really figure out what the best fit's going to end up being for you. So there are 4 different ways that we have our students, get on this proverbial bicycle, as it were. One is co-op, which is probably the thing that folks get most excited about when they talk about Northeastern. So we'll cover that in great detail. Another is global study. Then we have service and service learning. And then last but certainly not least, we have research. So we'll take those out of order. So research first. Northeastern is a Carnegie Tier 1 classified research university, which basically means a lot of research is happening in a lot of disciplines, and we're receiving a lot of funding to make it possible. There are more than 40 different research laboratories on Northeastern's campus. This is actually taken in one of them, the brand new Interdisciplinary State Science and Engineering Complex, which is a mouthful, so we call it ISEC. This building is cool because faculty can actually only get laboratory space in that building if they demonstrate their research is interdisciplinary, because the focus at Northeastern really is on connecting different disciplines and creating bridges between different foci. So research is one thing that is absolutely open to undergraduate students, potentially as early as the first semester of your first year. While we love our graduate students, they are not the full bread and butter of the Northeastern experience. So we really do want to make sure we prioritize those opportunities for our students. Research is certainly available in the STEM field. So if you were hungry for that lab coat and goggles kind of experience, we definitely have that for you. But we also have research opportunities available in the arts as well as the humanities. That's another cool photo from inside of ISEC. It makes me laugh because it also won some architectural awards, which was not the idea of the building, but is a fun little plus. So research is certainly one thing that our students pursue, but definitely not the only one. Another is service. So Northeastern was actually founded in the back room of a YMCA on Huntington Avenue, which is the main thoroughfare kind of running adjacent to our campus, by a group of sweaty young men after a workout who were chatting, and they said, we want to go back to school. They put their heads together, they wrote up a grant, submitted it to the city of Boston, and received funding to offer evening classes to working professionals in that same back room of the Y after the gym had closed for the day. Slowly but surely, over the next 100 years, we have now become the 73-acre top-tier research university that we are. But we're really proud of our roots, both in the city of Boston and the blue-collar and working-class community. And we really want to make sure that our students are not only smart students, but are also good people, and are leaving Northeastern with strong, solid understandings of community, of civic engagement, and how to be a good neighbor. So service takes two different flavors at Northeastern. One is service learning, which is embedded into the academic experience. And then we also have service out of our Center of Community Service, which looks like alternative service breaks, one-day service commitments, a little bit more flexible for our students. Another pillar of experiential learning is global study. So the president of the university, President Joseph Aoun, says every year when he welcomes new students to campus, he gives a very dramatic speech. And he says, welcome to Northeastern, now go away. And then he pauses dramatically, because his goal is for 100% of our students to have some sort of international experience before they graduate. Now, this is not a hard and fast requirement, but it is certainly something that our students are excited about. Northeastern has a presence in 126 different countries and counting, and there are a variety of ways that you can study abroad. Students can conduct traditional study abroad, where you spend a semester taking classes at a university in another country. Those classes will count towards your diploma at Northeastern. We also offer bite-sized study abroad experiences called Dialogues of Civilizations, which run 4 to 5 to 6 weeks in the summer with other Northeastern students, Northeastern faculty. But then you also have the chance to squeeze in a summer break or a summer job or taking additional classes. So it's a nice bite-sized way to still have that experience without having to necessarily commit an entire semester. We also have a program called the NU In program, where about a third of our incoming students actually start college internationally. So unlike other schools where students may need to wait until their junior or senior year to get those passport stamps, you could actually start college in another country with a cohort of other incoming Northeastern students. And then you can complete your co-op internationally, which I intentionally saved for that as a nice forced segue into talking about co-op more specifically. I'm gonna drink my water and gear up. So co-op is Northeastern's pride and joy, and it is, our opportunity to give our students real-world, hands-on professional experience. I like to start by framing co-ops as like internships, but bigger and better, because instead of being part-time, co-ops are full-time. Instead of being, integrated with taking classes in the same semester, co-ops are actually full-time over the course of 6 months. And while students are on their co-op, they've essentially pressed the pause button on being a college student. So they have paused going to class, they have paused paying tuition, they have paused doing homework, and instead, from either January to June or July to December, they are focused on being an entry-level employee at one of 3,000 companies worldwide where Northeastern has professional formal partnerships. While students are on these co-ops, they're full-time employees. They're not just the interns. No one is expecting them to make copy or go get go get coffee for their bosses. They really are there to take on projects and be full-fledged members of the teams to which they've been hired. We have partnerships with companies across in different industries across the world, and students can complete up to 3 of these co-ops before they graduate, meaning that they could actually have a year and a half of professional paid experience on their resume before they've even received their diploma. Average co-op salary is about $20 an hour, does adjust for industry and for location. And students are able to, as I said, choose between 1, 2, or 3 of these experiences. Meaning if you know you want to graduate in 4 years, but you also want to get at least 1 co-op, maybe 2 co-op experiences, you can do that. But we also have students who say, I really want that full year and a half of professional experience, in which case their Northeastern time does tip into a 5th calendar year. Now I say calendar year because I don't want to give folks the impression that they're taking more than 8 semesters of classes or paying for more than 8 semesters of classes. As I mentioned, but I'll reiterate it here intentionally, while you're on co-op, you're not paying tuition because you're not taking classes. It's not credit bearing. You've pressed the pause button. So some of my colleagues are Northeastern alums, and they actually paid off their student loans while they were still undergrads from their co-op salary. So it certainly is a positive experience, both financially, but also personally. It really allows our students to really check and see, is what I'm studying actually what I want to do for the rest of my life? And then they get to go do it, which I think is pretty cool. The last bucket is all of the other fun stuff that makes going to college in a city like Boston and out of school like Northeastern as incredible as it is. But I am mindful that was a lot of information thrown at all of you very quickly. So I do want to pause and see if we have any questions about any of the things that I've covered so far, or if folks have specific questions about student life that I can kind of focus our conversation around that area around.
William, do you want to go first or?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask in regards to study abroad, is that something that's extended to or available for all majors, or are there any exceptions?
Yeah. So as you know, that's the beauty of the president, wanting 100% of our students to have that experience, is we really have worked hard to make sure it's accessible to students, even students who are studying some of those more kind of strict curricula, so students in engineering or nursing, for example. Some of that might look like a traditional study abroad semester, typically taken a little bit early so that some of their more foundational course requirements. But that's also where things like those dialogues of civilization, so those bite-sized experiences, really do come in handy because they don't require students to lose any time, and they still get to have that immersive experience with other Northeastern students.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Also, I want to ask in regards to a specific major, if I can. When you're talking about experiential learning, I thought of a conversation I had earlier today with a student who is someone who really benefits from hands-on learning. And we were just talking about kind of how, a college environment that really fosters that and allows him a lot of opportunities would be, super beneficial. And he's pretty sure he wants to go into business. He's really interested in kind of entrepreneurship more than anything, I think, starting his own ventures, after college. I'm just curious if you can think of offhand any specific examples of how a student in business might be able to have experiential learning opportunities.
Yeah, so I will speak super high level. The short answer is there are a lot. And especially as that student, were to figure out what their specific focus area would be, I think they would find a lot of opportunity. I did not plan this, but what a great timing for this photo to appear. So Northeastern does have a business college. It's the DeMoore McKim School of Business. Within it, students will choose a concentration between a general management kind of track and then an international business track. And within that, they're still going to get overall exposure to the general business world. Students in DeMoore McKim do all complete at least 1 co-op. The majority will pursue more than 1 because it tends to align with their goals and their business interests. But the companies really do run the gamut. We certainly do have partnerships with some of the sexier companies, the Apples, the Googles, the Wall Street firms, the different organizations. But then we also have a lot of partnerships with smaller companies and smaller organizations that really give students a chance to try on different hats while they're in that experience. The best resource to kind of get a better idea of specific organizations or companies that Northeastern has partnerships with is the co-op website. Quickest way to get there is just Google Northeastern Co-op. And they actually list all 3,000 of the partners that we have. The other thing that I'll add just around co-op in particular, and then certainly for DMSB students as well, is that each of these co-op partners and experiences is fully vetted. So we do have full-time co-op advisors. Their job is to make sure that these experiences are going to be meaningful work experiences. to also prep students before they go out on those experiences, check in with them while they're on co-op to make sure they're alive and well and help them overcome any challenges that they might encounter. And then they do a pretty robust debrief after students finish too, to make sure that, what they've learned is being integrated back into what they're studying and vice versa. The other piece is that all students across all disciplines, including the DeMoore McKim School of Business, take an intro to college course that's taught by an academic or a co-op advisor that really focuses on the college experience through the lens of their particular major. So even for students who have already decided what they particularly want to concentrate in, we still want to give them that kind of overview to Northeastern as a whole, as well as their specific college, just so they know all of the things that are available to them. Which is a pretty long-winded, semi-non-answer to your question. Did I get at some of what you were wondering for your student?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, is asking that question. I know that you're not a walking computer, so I know that you wouldn't just have all of those examples off the top of your head. But no, the idea of visiting the co-op website, I appreciate that suggestion a lot. I think that's something that would be really good to show to a student, who maybe would want to see, well, what does that mean? What's a specific example of, co-op learning? So, and I think that idea of co-op learning, just in general, is something that a lot of students would probably be amazed to discover is even a real thing. Like, oh, you can work and get paid for it, and you don't have to pay tuition that semester. So yeah, it was very, very helpful.
Well, and I think, what's so great about co-op is I think it takes folks a moment to kind of wrap their brain around it, because it is a little bit different. I think folks have become accustomed to the idea of internships. And I think sometimes it's like, oh, but if can you not do internships? And no, students certainly do complete internships at Northeastern, if it fits with their schedule or there's a particular, program that they're interested in. We don't say you can't. We just say, wouldn't you rather do this full time and be paid to learn and do it rather than doing it part time on an unpaid basis? But we have advisors that'll work with students to make sure that, whatever they're pursuing makes the most sense for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a few questions about this too. I've had students to whom I've explained this whole co-op experience idea. And what I hear a lot, and this oftentimes comes a little more from the parents, is the concern that then you won't feel like you're part of the college community because it removes you from that for a while. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what that is like?
Yeah, and I think that's a very astute, question and observation, but I also appreciate your framing that it might come from folks who have had a different college experience. The best answer that I've ever heard to this question, which we get a lot, is a very normal and understanding question, was one of our students a few years ago. She was like, well, the important thing for me to say is this is the only place I've ever gone to college. This is all I know. For me, this is very normal, that I might not see my best friend for 6 months because they might be in the Philippines doing their co-op, and then they're going to come back and it's going to be fine. I do think, Northeastern might have a different vibe, than some campuses that might be smaller, traditional college campuses in rural locations where everybody kind of comes and is together in a really concentrated way for 4 years. That's not what our campus and community experience looks like. I think, part of it is that we are in an urban location. We are in downtown Boston. So by nature of being somewhere in the hustle and bustle, you have a lot of movement on and off campus. Students are hanging out just as often in the city of Boston as they are on campus. And then of course, through things like co-op or through global study, you certainly do have students who might actually literally be leaving campus for 6 months, if not a little bit longer. The one thing I underscore is they always come back. You are probably off campus at the same time that your friend is off campus. And my other favorite answer that students give is, folks will ask, how do you stay in touch with your friends? And they're like, I use Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram the way anybody else does. So I think our students are more prepared and hungry for these kinds of experiences than I certainly was when I was in college. And I think they really take to it. The other piece is it's not like we're flinging them into the wilderness and saying, see you in 6 months, figure it out. They have their touch points with their co-op advisor. We also, in cities where there are a large concentration of Northeastern students completing either study abroad or their co-ops, we do also have some Northeastern campuses available. So some students might actually rent their housing from the university while they're out on co-op. So we, have purchased apartments in places like LA or Washington, DC or New York, where we have high concentrations of students. So I think they find that there's a miniature Northeastern community in a lot of different places.
Awesome. I love what you pointed out about some of your colleagues who did the co-op and graduated from Northeastern and were actually able to pay off a significant amount or all of their tuition and debt. So I think that's just really exciting. Also, how you pointed out, in an internship, you're working for free and you might not get, the really projects that you want to get, and that kind of responsibility that would allow you to really truly see what is this job like on a daily basis. But in a co-op, you are getting that, and you're getting paid, which helps you pay for your education, and you have those practical experiences on your resume. Because a lot of students say, you know, once they try to find a job, it's like, well, what have you done? And it's like, but this, I'm looking for my first job. But my first job is asking me, you know, what experience do I have? It's this vicious cycle, right? Trying to get your first job, but your first job wanting you to have that experience. So I feel like the co-op system is really, really great to give yourself that head start into already having something very real experience on your resume, and also for yourself as a student to really, like you said, dip your toes in the water, or actually go and swim in the lake and figure out, do I like this lake or do I prefer a river, right? So yeah, that's really awesome. I specifically have a student who's actually one of our attendees right now, who's very interested in potentially someday going into the medical field, but because of COVID, she hasn't really been able to do any internships or shadowing or anything like that that would put her in that setting. She just knows she's really passionate about the STEM fields. She loves biology, chemistry, that kind of thing. You know, so as we're talking about the careers associated with it, and some of them being in the health fields, a lot of, you know, what I'm saying to her is, I want you to be able to go to a university where you can immerse yourself in a clinical field so that you can see, does this excite me? Is this where I want to take my STEM field? And so what opportunities do you have for students interested in the medical professions? Like how immersive does it get? And would it be a co-op, or would it be called something else? What does that look like?
Yeah, great questions. I'll take us from a couple of different angles, but definitely please ask me follow-ups. Or if that student would like to ask me follow-ups since they're here, I would love to hear from them in the Q&A as well. So a couple of different approaches. So one is, regardless of what major a student is pursuing at Northeastern, they can participate in our pre-health advising program. So, you know, typically students who are interested in going into the medical fields will end up picking a major in either our Bouvet College of Health Sciences or our College of Science. But theoretically, you could be a theater major and still be part of our pre-health advising program. Might lead to a little more creative conversations with your advisor about pursuing some of those requirements, but you have that opportunity. So first, I will say, regardless of what major or majors you pick, you have folks whose full-time job is to really help position students for success in the medical field. So whether that be, you know, pre-health, pre-dental, pre-med, pre-vet, we have students who are going into nursing, we have students who go into pharmacy. We are very lucky in terms of our location in the city of Boston, as well as the other piece that I say for students who are considering the medical field, because you don't have to go far to get those immersive hands-on experiences, whether it's in a laboratory setting, whether you'd like to go into a clinical setting and see, you know, the hospital side. We also have a ton of research laboratories, both on campus and certainly off campus as well. A number of the vaccine manufacturers right now are based in Boston, and that's work that Northeastern has pretty close partnerships and ties with. So I think that, you know, both academically, academic supports outside of your specific classes, and then from those hands-on experiences, whether it be through co-op or through research, I think our students are absolutely getting this kind of exposure. I actually, you know, when we were talking about students who are able to kind of use co-op as a way to get that experience that then helps them get that first job so you don't get stuck in that catch-22, I've had conversations with some of our alums who are now actually in medical school, and they talk about how co-op really was the differentiator for them in their med school application process. Because if they're competing, you know, if they're being compared next to peers at other institutions who might have had some part-time shadowing opportunities or maybe internships and have taken the classes, whereas Northeastern students have worked full-time in these settings. And so they're able to really have that leg up on some of the competition when they're applying to medical or dental or even law school, as it may be, because we also offer other pre-professional advising programs as well. But, you know, I would say it depends a little bit on the specific major that students are interested in. But if they know they want to go into the medical field, whether that be med school, some of the other things that the pre-health advising program really helps them with is, you know, class selection, making sure they get the things that are going to position them to be competitive in that med school process. But then they also are going to give them MCAT prep. And 100% of students at Northeastern who want a letter of recommendation from Northeastern faculty as part of their med school application process will get it, which is pretty unique. Not every college does that. And our med school placement rate is well above the national average. National average is in the 40s, and Northeastern's has the last couple of years been in the 70s or above. So our students who want to go to med school are getting the preparation to be able to do so. And I think most importantly, specifically for the student too, is having some time while they're in their undergraduate career to figure out which pathway makes the most sense without having to lock in that major until they're ready. So no student technically has to declare their major until the end of their sophomore year. So even if you come in with a major indicated in your application and you kind of hit the ground running in that program, we still want you to be able to take 4 semesters to try it out and really make sure that that's going to be the best fit for you.
So that means you wouldn't be locked into a major, even if it's a major that is at other universities considered competitive and hard to like transfer into. Can you maybe talk about some of the majors that would be like that, where you've seen students transfer into that major, even if it was after their first year, and be successful?
Yeah, so the beauty is it's all of them. It's any combination of one major to another. So I know, especially speaking with my California friends, we don't have impacted majors at Northeastern. That's not a thing. We don't cap majors, we don't cap class sizes. If, theoretically, if all 3,000 of our incoming students said, I want to be an engineer after they started on campus, we would say, all right, guess we got to find some new classroom space for the College of Engineering because it just grew. So it really is dictated by students' interests. There's a couple of different pathways I think that it'll take. There are students who are very certain of what they want to study. They indicate that in their application. They're admitted into that program. They start in that college and they continue down their path. Perhaps there's a student in that place where they then come in, they take that intro class and they say, this is not what I thought it was. I have changed my mind. If they know what they want to study instead, they just meet with their advisor, they fill out a form, they have now transitioned into that other program, that's that. If they want to take some time to figure it out, or if they came in not ready to commit to one major or one college in particular, they can find a temporary home in our college, in our Explore program, which is our program for undeclared students, which is some additional structured advising and support that gives students the tools and resources to be able to do some really kind of deep introspection and some interviews with different folks throughout campus to really figure out what major or majors are going to be the best fit for them. So, I think, and it really can include, some of the more structured or more competitive majors. So things like engineering, things like health science, things like mathematics, I think things like nursing. If a student decides 2 months before graduation that they'd like to study engineering after studying something else, that might be a slightly different conversation with their academic advisor, because we want to make sure they're graduating on time and not taking on inordinate amounts of debt, that sort of thing. But typically, if a student is making that call within their first 8 semesters on campus, we make it work. And some of it too is because of how flexible our core curriculum really is. As they're pursuing these different classes and kind of exploring and figuring it out, they're not wasting any time, because all of those courses they've taken are going to count towards something for whatever major they do declare.
Awesome, thank you. I know that you said you wanted to talk a bit about student life, and that's definitely a big one for our students. Just most of our students do come from California, so learning about what is it like to go to school in Boston. And then in Boston, there are so many different universities. So what makes, Northeastern within that Boston environment, since, across the river, you have MIT, right next to you have BU. So there's a lot going on. So if we could get some insight into, what's happening on campus, what does student life look like? What do people do? Organizations, clubs, Greek life, sports, anything like that. And especially, school spirit and how it manifests. I know I just threw like 20 things at you, but if you could, give us a good idea of what it's like to be there.
Yeah, let me talk at some of those and then ask me follow-ups if I forget any of those things, because they're all important and I want to give them all a little bit of airtime. So I would say, first and foremost, we are a residential campus. So our 73-acre campus in downtown Boston, which is on the ancestral homelands of the Massachusetts and Wampanoag tribes, which we do like to acknowledge when we talk about our campus community, is really built on the belief that we want our students to be living in community with one another. So we do require students to live on campus for their first 2 years. This is, as a note, in pre and post-COVID times. We've had some exceptions, in this last year, but we are excited to hopefully be getting closer to normal soon. We do that because we want our students to have the chance to take advantage of all the stuff that's going on campus and in Boston, because as you said, there are, I think the latest number is about 33 colleges and universities within proper Boston city limits. So pretty much every other person that you see if you step off campus, and certainly on campus, is going to be another young person, is going to be another college student. So Boston has a lot of backpacks, a lot of excited energy, a lot of conversation about studying. It also means you have access to a lot of free or reduced cost different resources. So I have not once paid for a ticket to a Red Sox game at Fenway Ballpark, but I have had the privilege of being able to attend at least once a year for a number of years, because when you attend or work at a university, these kinds of things just kind of appear. Tickets become available. Same situation for, certainly the Boston sports scene, but then also the Northeastern, student community sports scene. If you have any interest in college sports, whether it be as a participant or as a fan, we certainly have those opportunities available. So Northeastern is a Division I institution. We also have club and intramural sports, and folks probably get most excited about our men's and women's hockey, basketball, and rowing programs. Our basketball team has made it into the tournament the last few years, not too far into the tournament, but they get to punch their ticket to the big dance, which we get excited about. It's always a tough break when you get matched up against Kansas in the first round, but that is okay, no hard feelings. Our men's hockey team competes every year in a tournament called the Beanpot, as does our women's team, which is where Boston University, Boston College, Harvard, and Northeastern compete in the TD Garden, where the Celtics and Bruins play, for a trophy that looks like a pot of beans, hence the name. There was a 30-year drought where Northeastern had not won, and then consistently over the last few years, we keep winning and bringing it home to Huntington Avenue. So certainly plenty of bragging rights, and if you are seeking that college sports fan experience, we definitely have that for you. What I think is so special about Northeastern and schools like it that are our size and in a location like ours is, if you want to have that college sports fan experience, it's there. If you want nothing to do with it, there is plenty else to do on your weekends, and I promise you will find friends in a community, even if you're not interested in the sports scene. Same deal with Greek life. So we do have fraternities and sororities. About 12% of our students are participating in Greek life on campus, but it is by no means a dominant force. So like sports, like Greek life, like any other element, your world can really be whatever you define it to be. We have more than 450 student groups and organizations, and they really do run the gamut. There's academic, athletic, artistic, pre-professional. There is a cheese appreciation society, as well as a squirrel watching club. We have an intramural Quidditch team, as well as some more traditional sports like soccer or basketball for students interested in competing in a non-super competitive realm. We also have a number of fitness facilities on campus, great dining. My favorite dining hall is called International Village, because each station is inspired by cuisine from throughout the world. And once you swipe into one of our dining halls, they are all you care to eat while you're inside. So on the rare occasion that I'm granted access to the dining hall, I beeline for the sushi station and load up my tray and eat it all and then get some more. So you definitely are going to be well fed at Northeastern. I'd say also working our way up the hierarchy of needs, starting with this foundational, the housing. So I mentioned we do require you to live on campus for your first 2 years. Your first year, you'll live in what's called a living learning community, or an LLC, basically themed housing to make sure that you and your roommates and your resident advisor have something in common that first year to help you kind of kickstart those relationships and build community. So when you are admitted to Northeastern and you say, yes, I'm attending, you then get to fill out a survey where you rank all of the different LLCs that we have available. And historically, in the 10 years that we've had LLCs, students will always get one of their top 3 ranked choices, because we want you to be with people that you're excited to meet. Some fun examples of LLCs include the Cultural Inclusion LLC for students who are focused on areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They do a lot of partnership with Northeastern's 10 different cultural and identity affinity spaces on campus. There's a foodies floor, so students are bonded by their love of food. They go to restaurants and they cook food, and that's kind of their bonding activity. There's a sustainability floor, there's an LGBTQ+ floor. So students are really able to kind of select that first living community based on whatever makes the most sense to them. So if you're my hypothetical engineer and you only want to hang out with other engineers, you can pick an engineering LLC, or you can say, I will see y'all in class. I would like my living learning community to be something else. You have that choice. Otherwise, let's see, we talked athletics a little bit. We talked Greek life. There are lots of clubs. The other thing too is, I imagine you hear a lot of colleges say, and all it takes is 12 friends and a faculty signature, and you too can create a club. I apologize, I do live in the city, so sometimes we hear the sounds. And that is true at Northeastern, but when I started working at the university about 6 years ago, we had about 300 clubs and organizations. And in the 6 years since, our list of clubs and organizations has expanded. pretty significantly. And I think that that's a really cool testament to the kinds of students that we have at Northeastern. They're the kind of students who are not only content to say, all right, this is how it is, I guess I'll figure it out. They say, oh, there's a need that I think isn't being met that I might be able to contribute toward fixing or making better. Let me get my friends together and actually do that and create something, which I think is very cool. I think very highly of our students, and I'm always impressed at how, they're incredibly professionally minded and, very mature. And I think a lot of that is from things like co-op and having those professional experiences, but they're also real people, and they're really fun and funny and quirky, and they're college students who are engaged in the community. And I love our students. I think they're the very best part of the work we do. So for any of you that are interested in Northeastern, I certainly encourage you, of course, to talk to folks like me in the admissions office, but really find ways to connect with current students. They are the best advocates for their learning experience. Many of them, are literally being paid to tell you about their lives, which I think is the best job that someone can have. And they are eager to connect with you. So we do have ample opportunities through our website too for students who are interested in Northeastern to chat with some current students too. So that was a lot of my rambling after 20 questions. Is there anything I missed?
I don't think you missed anything. I do have follow-ups. I'm sure William does too. We always have our long list of questions. I have one that I thought it was interesting how you were explaining right now with the housing, the living learning communities, how you really try to make all students feel that sense of community from the start. So you also said that about a third of students actually start with a study abroad instead of starting on campus. How do you create that sense of community and belonging for those students?
Yeah, great question. I love how you've tied a couple of threads together. It makes me feel listened to, so thank you. So our NU-IN program does have students start internationally. That's what the IN stands for, the NU-IN. And so they're not necessarily, having that Boston campus experience until spring of their freshman year. The beauty of that is that they are having that international experience with other Northeastern first-year students, and they're having that experience on a college campus. So all of our NU-IN sites are college partners in other places. So it changes year to year, but every year we've had a partnership, with McGill University in Canada, for example, or Northeastern actually has a campus at the New College of Humanities in London, and that's where our students will spend time if they choose our London program, for example. So I think kind of to the earlier question of, is it weird for students who go back and forth? That's the experience they know. For them, they are starting college by getting on a plane with other students who are also getting on that plane with them. And they're going to be living in a different country for 4 months and figuring it out and then coming to campus afterward. All of those locations are staffed by full-time Northeastern employees. So those residence halls will have resident advisors and living learning communities like they would if they were in Boston. They will host hall events. They just might be a little bit more exciting even than our students who are in Boston, because they're getting to do things like traveling internationally. So they spend their long weekends, hopping to other countries, especially for students who are in Europe, where it can be very easy to travel. But they're also doing things like they have ice cream parties, and, they're hanging out in the quad and having study breaks too. I think it's the first year college experience is the same for a lot of students in a lot of different places. I think, if the fundamentals are strong of having excited, motivated students who want to connect with their communities and get to know more and get to know each other, if that's there, regardless of where they are, that's going to happen. And I think we definitely do see that with NU-IN.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, that's really great to know that, not only are you with your cohort, but you even get to choose a living learning community, and you have, all the staff and everything. So I think that's definitely going to be a really great little nugget for our students to hear when they're listening to this podcast or watching the webinar version. Since, it's always kind of scary when you're not only doing something completely new, but you're also doing it in a new country. So hearing how you guys really built that out to really have that sense of community and support. So, exploring something completely new and being independent, but in a very safe space. That's very exciting. I guess I have another question it's a quick one, but being in Southern California and living in balmy weather all the time, our students ask, what is the Boston climate like? What should they, get ready for? What should they prepare for? Is it like Siberia? Is it not? What is it like?
Yeah, I would say yes. Sometimes it is like Siberia, sometimes it is not. So my experience, definitely comes from my own perspective, having grown up in the South and then moving to New England. And I remember I called my mom my first semester of college and I said, I have never seen snowflakes this big. I'm wearing 4 pairs of pants. What is happening? What I like to tell students who are considering, relocating to New England is that truly, truly, if you get a jacket that covers your rear end and a good pair of snow boots, you will be fine. I think that, I really loved being able to relocate to somewhere where you got 4 distinct seasons. Autumn felt like autumn and the leaves changed and dropped and it felt very collegiate, crisp New England weather. And then winter is cold. I won't sugarcoat it. It's certainly chilly. But the advantage of living on a college campus is that you don't have to deal with any of the yucky parts of it snowing. You're not having to shovel. You're not needing to try to drive a car in the snow. We have an amazing facilities crew who helps make sure that our campus is safe and navigable. So you can focus on things like building snow huskies, or we actually had students who built a pretty large igloo in front of our visitor center a few years ago, where about 6 of them could hang out inside, and that's what they did. And that was their activity for the day. So that becomes an option in a way that it might not be where you currently live. And then spring is an incredibly magical time, I think, especially because you've survived the winter months. There's nothing more beautiful than the first couple of times that those flowers pop through, or you see the students break out their hammocks in Centennial Common, and you're like, the warm weather is coming. And then for students who choose to stick around, whether it's because of co-op or taking classes over the summer, Boston in the summer is lovely. It's a little quieter because it is such a college town. So it's, a little bit less crowded. Some students aren't there. And we also, the thing that's beautiful about Boston is it certainly is a city, but you do have access to these little pockets of nature. So there's the Charles River Esplanade that runs through the city, through the center of the city. And you have, a riverway and then some parks and some grass and some greenery. And so you do have the opportunity to engage in some of these outdoor activities, not to mention the entire New England region that's, pretty accessible with a quick drive or on our commuter rail, so our larger train that runs up and down the corridor. So students who are interested in things like skiing or snowboarding, like you definitely have access to that. And there are some Northeastern clubs and organizations that will help get you off campus to be participating in those if that's your speed too. So you certainly do get all 4. It does get cold, but we do have a tunnel system that does run through some of our academic buildings on campus. So if you are really averse to the weather, but otherwise everything about Northeastern makes you excited, you can live like a groundhog and be pretty strategic and not have to spend too much time in the cold.
That's awesome. I did not know about the tunnel system. I love it. William, do you have any other questions? I have one more, but William, you know what my one last question is, as always, but I'm sure that you have a bunch of other questions too.
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple things that come to mind, sort of on a similar note to what the experience like for an out-of-state student would be like. It seems like Northeastern has actually a really high percentage of out-of-state students, from just checking the statistics from last year. It looks like it was almost half of students are from out-of-state. So, and I'm glad to be able to talk to someone who also came from out-of-state, granted from a different part of the country. But now, is there, in your experience, both as well, I know your alma mater is Boston University, so that not exactly the same as being on campus in Northeastern, but in Boston as a college student from out, is it kind of just like a lot of perspectives mixing in that environment?
William,
am I freezing up?
You froze up a little. Could you just repeat the whole question? That way we can cut this part out.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there coming from out of state, did you have to adjust to a particular Boston culture among students? Did you notice anything like that? Or is it more just kind of like everyone is open to learning from other perspectives, and it's more of a mix of backgrounds?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So, I will name my own identities and backgrounds and recognize that it may not match what it is for a lot of folks to transition into a new place. I had the experience of being a cisgender white woman attending a predominantly white university. So that's certainly a different experience, I think, than students of color or students from different backgrounds might have. That said, I think one of the things that's really special about Boston is that because it has so many different types of universities and it is such a hub for so many different industries, I think you have a lot of folks from a lot of different places and of a lot of different backgrounds working together toward their common goal, whatever that is, whether it's academia, whether it's in their industries. And so what I think that results in is folks who do develop a little bit more quickly a fluency with engaging across difference and learning to really celebrate and appreciate those different identities. I don't want to say that, I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish. It's certainly not flawless. We certainly do have challenges like anywhere. I think our campus, being a predominantly white institution and a predominantly wealthy institution, we certainly have some room to grow, and we've got some growth areas that we're working on. But I do think, from my experience in working with Northeastern students, there is a really earnest commitment to understanding and finding common ground, and really being able to engage in community with one another. And I do just want to put in another plug, for our cultural centers on campus, because I think that they do an amazing job of creating those homes away from home for our students. And one in particular, so there's 10 different centers, and many of them are rooted in specific identities. There's the Asian American Center, there's the LGBTQ+ Student Center, there's the African American Institute. But then we also have a Center for Intercultural Engagement and a Social Justice Resource Center. And they're really focused on making sure that students are not only finding their own identities and voices, but are learning how to interact with others who might have different backgrounds too. So, I think there's always work to be done, but I am really proud of the work that's being done on Northeastern's campus to that end.
It's really great. So I do want to allow time for Josephine's last question. I know time is short, but a couple just really quick things. If I can actually go back to just academics briefly, in terms of the combined majors, just wanted to ask really quickly, if a student is interested in an interdisciplinary major or combining multiple subjects that they don't see on the list of combined majors, is there flexibility for designing their own combined major?
Yes, I realize if people are just listening to the audio, I am nodding. Yes, there is flexibility.
Awesome. And then one really quick thing, I was looking at, when looking up some of the additional academic programs offered at Northeastern, I was a little confused just by what was available to read about online of the difference between the General Studies program and the Explore program for undeclared students. If you could clarify what the difference is.
Yeah, I can take a stab. To be honest with you, the General Studies program is handled a little bit outside of the kind of typical admissions purview. So I'm going to speak broadly, but that's another place where I would love to refer you, specifically if you have follow-up questions, to one of my colleagues in that program. General Studies tends to provide a little bit more of a structured kind of foundational academic coursework program. So more of your traditional core curriculum when you think about other places that might have, the streamlined intro to college English, intro to college mathematics, those sorts of things. Whereas Explore is a lot more open-ended. They don't have particular curriculum mapping. So students can be admitted directly into the General Studies program, whereas the Explore program is something that students might opt into.
Great. Josephine, I'll turn it over.
Yeah, I actually realized that something we didn't talk about yet that's actually really important would be scholarships, financial aid, and also admissions. So I was wondering if you'd be able to go a little bit past 6 p.m. Would that be okay, Rhiannon?
I can probably squeeze about 5 extra minutes, and I talk fast, so I think we can cover it all.
Perfect. So scholarships, financial aid, admissions, run with it.
Yeah, so we know college is a really significant commitment and also a really significant financial investment for students and families. Northeastern is a private university, and we are an expensive university, and we recognize that, and we don't think it benefits anyone for us to try to pretend otherwise. The reason I'm able to get away with being so straightforward about it is because the vast majority of our students do not pay the full published sticker price in tuition. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that every single student who applies to the university is automatically reviewed not only for admission, but also for all of our available merit scholarship opportunities. These range from a couple $1,000s to about $30,000 per semester, and there is not a single additional thing that students need to do to be considered for those. No different deadlines, no extra essays, no additional letters of recommendation, just that same application for admission gets them automatically reviewed for all of those scholarships. Our admissions review process and our scholarship review process are holistic, meaning that we don't have clear-cut minimums or cutoffs. We look at everything we get, we read it all, and then we make our decisions from there with guidance from the powers that be, that help us kind of set those parameters. But every single student who applies to the university is going to get considered for all of our scholarships. So that's the one big thing. The other big thing is that Northeastern has what we call the Northeastern Promise, which is our commitment to meeting 100% of a student and family's demonstrated financial need for the entire time that they are a student at Northeastern. At the risk of going a little bit financial aid jargony, I just want to explain a little bit more detail what that means. Although I know you have folks who help you, just figure out all of the coded language that colleges use. So I just like to be a little bit specific when it comes to financial aid. So when students and families who are U.S. citizens are eligible to receive federal financial aid, what they do is they complete 2 financial aid forms for us, the FAFSA as well as the CSS profile. Those 2 forms in combination will, ask questions about a student and family's financial situation, and they will spit out a number called the EFC, which stands for the expected family contribution. This is the amount of money that a student and their family is going to be expected to pay toward their college costs. What we do at Northeastern is take our full tuition price, and then we subtract that expected family contribution from it. Everything that is left over, we are going to give to the student. Period, end of sentence, end of conversation. It's theirs for the entire time they are a student at Northeastern. The other elements of the promise are that if tuition goes up from one year to the next, which it often does, usually about 2 or 3%, the amount of grant funding that they're receiving as part of their Northeastern promise is going to increase by the exact same percentage, because we don't think it would be fair to bait and switch you and adjust the percentage there. And then the flip side, if a student's family were to experience any sort of negative change in financial circumstance, somebody lost a job or there was some opportunity there, we will always take another look at your application to see if we can adjust your funding and try to increase your award. Because we know that if you choose to make that commitment to Northeastern for your first year, we don't think it would be fair or right to then change things on you for sophomore year and the preceding years. So what you receive along with your admissions decision, which you will receive along with your admissions decision as long as you file your financial aid paperwork on time, is yours for the entire time that you're a student at Northeastern.
So that sounds like part of the promise is that, if you don't get any need-based aid because you didn't have demonstrated need when you first applied, if after a year, like your parents lose their jobs or impacted by a life event and now have a lower EFC score and have demonstrated need, you will then take that into account and meet that demonstrated need. Okay.
Exactly.
Great. This is, it's really interesting because, we do have a lot of students who might be really scared by a sticker price like that. So that's really good to know. And then you can combine that with also doing a co-op where you're getting paid and bring that towards Northeastern's price as well. You did mention that you do tuition minus EFC score, or do you do total cost of attendance minus EFC score?
It's a very good, nuanced, wonky question for our financial aid department. I say that because our financial aid process is handled by my colleagues in the financial aid office. So Northeastern is not a need-blind institution. Occasionally, a student family's need-based situation might factor into their admissions decision, but it's super rare. Typically, we do admissions things in our office. The financial aid folks do their financial aid thing in their office, and then we come together to make sure the package is put together so that when we release admissions decisions, everything is released together. I believe it's the total cost of attendance, but I don't want to lie. So that would be a great question to just follow up with student financial services on.
Yeah, no problem. And then as far as the application goes, is there anything important, as far as like what your deadlines look like or what students should make sure to put on their application or what the components are that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so, at a high level, as I mentioned, Northeastern does use a holistic review, which means we do ask for a full application, either the common application or the coalition application. We accept both and have zero preference between the two. You only need to submit one for me to believe that you're interested. Within that, we ask you some questions just about you and who you are and what makes you you. You have space to talk about, how you spend your time outside of class. I do always like to remind students that I know you're being told this by your advisors too, that, we really do value all of those experiences. So it's not just club leadership or athletic involvement. It's also family commitments and part-time work responsibilities and the other things that you're engaged with that, make you the human that you are. We do care about all of that. And, as part of our process being a holistic school, we really do read every element of your application. So it is all important. And along that same vein, we do require that personal statement, that college essay, which is my favorite part of reviewing applications because it's the space where I get to hear from young people in their own words, which is the best part of this process. Beyond that, we do require one letter of recommendation from a counselor, as well as one letter of recommendation from an academic area instructor. And then if there are additional folks in your corner that you would like us to hear from, you certainly do have the ability to submit additional letters. We just ask that you're thoughtful. I really do take folks at their word. I believe 2 people if they say you're wonderful. I don't need to hear it from more than 2. So, just know that we are trying to give you the benefit of the doubt in this process. Otherwise, Northeastern, for both this next year as well as the year afterward, we will continue to be test optional in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic and the burden that has put on students and families. When we say test optional, we really, really do mean optional. It is not coded language or a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you either do not have test scores or you don't have test scores that you feel like are super reflective of your abilities and your potential, don't submit them. Our middle 50% is available on our website as well as in our admissions materials. I really encourage you to compare the scores that you're receiving with that middle 50%. And if you find yourself on the lower end, think about taking advantage of our test optional status. So that way you can really be putting your best foot forward in part of the admissions process. Otherwise, let's see. $75 application fee that can absolutely be waived for students with financial need. Just reach out to your admissions counselor. And I think that's about it. Easy for me to say. I'm not the one preparing it.
Okay. That's awesome. I am totally trying to type out my notes here while I'm talking. Okay, here we go. Multitasking is hard. So you said for this year, next year, does that mean for the incoming, the freshmen who would be incoming 2022 and 2023?
I'm just double checking my years because in my brain it's still 2019. Let's see. So this current senior class, we are test optional. This current junior class, we will be test optional. And then for students who are sophomores right now, we will also be test optional for their senior year.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you. And I know we're almost over time. My last question is, what kind of student would not thrive at Northeastern?
I was wondering if it was going to be a big tricky question based on the way it was prepped. I think I don't want to be the jerk who doesn't accept the premise of your question, but I think that it's a tricky one because I think we have just over 17,000 undergraduate students, and as William mentioned, we have students coming to us from all different places, from all different backgrounds and different life experiences, and so I don't know that there's a stereotypical student who wouldn't do well at a place like Northeastern. I think there are so many opportunities and so many things that students can take advantage of. That I think everybody can find their home and everybody could thrive and really have a lot of experiences to take advantage of. I would say if you are the kind of person who really only wants your college experience to take place in the library and in your dorm room and in the classroom and that's it, and you don't want to go outside and meet different people and take advantage of a city and travel and be paid to learn through things like co-op, then maybe we're not your speed, but I also have yet to meet a young person who kind of falls into that categorization. So I appreciate the question, but I'll reject the premise a little bit. I think most students could find themselves thriving at Northeastern.
Awesome. Well, I love when people reject premises of questions. So that was wonderful. I think that's it for my questions. William, do you have anything else?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. That's very informative.
All right, my friends. Well, I hope that this is just the beginning of a conversation. If you're considering Northeastern, know that there is a wealth of information out there. And I and my colleagues are, of course, always happy to connect with students and families and advising folks who are interested in learning more. So our admissions website is the best resource if you want to learn more, just northeastern.edu/admissions. It is all there, including my contact information, many other of our own recordings and webinars, opportunities to connect with current students, the whole shebang. So if I piqued your interest at all today, I encourage you to spend some time exploring our resources there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rhiannon. This was very informative and really fun. So I know it's really late for you. So thanks for doing this at this time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I hope you all have wonderful dinners because I know it's starting to be dinner time on your end of the country. And it was really nice meeting all of you. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.